And hello, YouTube. It has been a very hot minute since I came to y'all with a video or a deck profile. Um, but I'm pretty confident in this list for Vanquish Soul. I took it to the NAWCQ weekend, LCQs. I made it to semifinals in two of them. I made it to semifinals in two other side events over the weekend that were single round eliminations. And then I took it to locals last night, was undefeated, finished first. My very last match was against Kashtira. Took it to game three. Some of the tech choices in here you might see that are different than some of the other lists that you probably see out there with Vanquish Soul, because I do not run Small World and I do not run Prosperities. So, I mean, honestly, I'm not mad because I only had one hand last night that I couldn't get to Ryzen, but I bricked completely anyways, like on some of the other cards to where I couldn't really play going first. But it was only one matchup, and honestly, it didn't even matter because I took the next two games against Kashtira. So yeah, we'll get right into it, and I'll show you guys what I've been cooking up with this deck. I thoroughly enjoy this deck. A lot of people say it's rogue, which is fine. I understand it doesn't get the representation that it needs to be at a higher tier, and it is missing a little bit. You do fight with consistency sometimes, but honestly, like last night and the last couple of weeks, I haven't had that issue. Usually, the matchups that I've lost, they just had a better hand and stuff during that time. So it's not really too much. So we're going to start off with 3 Ryzen. I mean, this is your main starter. On normal summon or special summon, you get to search a Vanquish Soul card. So I mean, it works out better. The destroy all monsters in its column comes up occasionally, but it's honestly, I've only used that maybe 5 times since playing the deck, but it will come up. Now, Mad Love here, you are going to run 3 Mad Love. Her bounce effect does come up, and it's kind of wonderful. But searching the spell cards, spell or trap cards, is a nice touch too. This is literally, I would say, best to second best card in the entire deck. Borger is amazing. Being able to draw a card when you need it makes one of the tech options just feel free. And then the burn is actually how I was able to take game 3 against Kashtira last night. So it works out. After Borger, of course, we're going to go with 2 Caesar Vallis. It does come up in like long games, but honestly, I found that it's usually the card that you put on the field when you're trying to push for game, in my opinion. I don't even use its destroy one card thing very often, but you know, some people do, some people don't. But I do think that 2 is the appropriate number. And of course, the one of Pantera. This is absolutely needed. I don't understand why I've seen some builds that are cutting it. The free special summon is nice, especially if you need to go into Baguska because of its bad hand, but that's only literally maybe happened to me once. So I'm not really complaining too much, but it's a free rock from the extra deck, so that's always a plus. After that, of course, we're going to do the Kashtira lineup. I do 2 Fenrir, 1 Rise Heart. Honestly, I mean, there's not much you can say. Everyone knows about Fenrir. I like the 2 instead of 3 because it feels like I don't brick on it as often. I'm only playing 1 Karikura now. I was playing 2, but I ran into the issue of seeing 2 of it in like an opening hand or something, and I decided to cut it down into 1. Now, last night I still ended up seeing it in about half of my games in opening hands, so sometimes it works out. Next up for the hand traps, this is going to be a little different than some people's because I'm not playing like a bunch of the hand traps that people say, oh, you should play outside of them being mainly sideboard. So I call them hand traps, but I am playing the bestials. 3 Magnamut, 1 Druid's Worm, and then the only other 2 hand traps, goes without saying, is I'm playing 2 Ash. Reason I'm not playing 3 is the same reason with Karikura being cut. I don't enjoy seeing more than 1 in opening hand, and this cut down on that, and I still end up seeing the card. And if you don't see it in your opening hand, I've drew it several times off of Borger's draw effect. Now on to the spells. We have 3 Stake Your Souls. This is your E-Telly. This is honestly part of the reason why I don't run... Well, let's go ahead and get the other searchers. So we play 3 Stake Your Soul and 2 Durandal. Honestly, this is the reason why I do not play the Prosperity or the other consistency boosters that people play, because I feel like you're still opening close to potentially 9 Risens. So honestly, if you don't see any of those, then odds are it's just one of those bad hands. But honestly, I have not had a hand outside of the one hand against Kashtira last night that I didn't see any of these. And even in that opening hand, I seen the Durandal. I just didn't open any of the other level 4 Vanquish Souls to be able to get into Ryzen. So it was just a bad hand all around, but I can't really complain too much because 9 times out of 10, it still works. Next up, I play 2 Continue and 1 Dust Devil. I do feel like this is the right ratio. I tested it with 2 Dust Devil, and it's not that it's the same issue. Sometimes you just see it too much, and then other time, but this way you do, like if you see one of the other, then you can just search the one that you don't have off of Mad Love. But running the 2 Dust Devil made me feel like I was not able. It made this Mad Love search pointless because I was just searching a double of something I already had in hand, which sometimes isn't bad because having 2 Continue, 1 for your turn and 1 for the opponent's turn, is kind of nice too. But in the long run, I do feel like this is the right ratio for these. 2 Triple Tack. This actually won me a game last night. He ashed my Fenrir, and I went into my plays, and I ended up drawing into attack, and I shuffled back the player's only starter. So after he drew, he really couldn't do anything else. Next up, and I will stand by this decision 100% because this card is the MVP of the deck, especially yesterday. It's 3 Super Polys. Super Poly is just a good card anyways. But this card going first or second is just wonderful. And you'll see my Super Poly lineup in the extra deck. And of course that is all like local and event determinant of what you put in there. And if I were to go to a regional, it would look a little different. But for the locals I attend a couple different ones. I feel like this lineup was what worked the best. Next up, I was trying this last night. I kind of want to add a second one, but then again, I didn't even see it last night, so I don't even know how good the card is, but I've been trying Pinpoint Landing. This card for Vanquish Soul is just a free +1. If you're able to get into it. So I'm tempted to try a second one, but finding this this deck list is kind of tight, so I don't even know what I would take out for it. Maybe take out a third Magnemite, but outside of that, I'm not complaining until I'm not going to complain or approve of this card until I actually get to use it. But this was what was in my deck last night. And then the only traps that I am running in main board are 3 evenly, just in case you lose the die roll. Honestly, evenly only came up once last night, so you know, it is one of those cards that might end up going to the sideboard, but I just thoroughly enjoy having it in main just in case. But Super Poly was literally what took the normal spot that evenly used to take for me. It was my board breaker going second, and it worked out fantastic. So on to the extra deck. I've played around with this. 2 is fine. I only needed 3 in one matchup last night, and it's against Kashtira. And I think it was game 3 that I needed 3 of them, and it worked out perfectly that I decided to try it with the third one. But I have tried it with 2, and 2 in most matchups are really good, but I am definitely glad I added the third. The only other links that I am playing is Security Dragon and Lingaribo. Security Dragon is, I mean, it's a good card. Like, it's not the best, but it definitely came in handy last night. Lingaribo, I've been Ibly locked several times, so sometimes Lingaribo is just one of those cards that I just keep in the side in the extra deck, just so I don't have to deal with trying to go through the motions of trying to get that off my board, especially since I don't play Dark Hole or something. This just makes it easier for me to have an out without having to play 3 extra cards. And your extra deck with this deck is so wide open that you could do so much more. So I'm playing around with a couple different ideas, but for now, Lingaribo is just a nice little card to have. It didn't come up last night, but it has in a while. So let's go through our rank 4s. I got 3 rank 4s, and one of them, some people were going to be like, well, why are you playing that? It's put in work for me. I've seen results with it. Like, let's say they have 3 monsters on board, you super poly 2 away, go into the one, you get rid of the other. So, but we'll discuss that one last. So, first up is Baguska. I mean, this is self-explanatory. Exciton Knight, Mini Zeus, you know, self-explanatory. But my next one is Silent Honor Arc. I threw some people off when I summoned this card, but it definitely comes in handy with people that don't pay attention to what position they're putting their monster. I have taken Fenrir's with this. I have taken Arise Hearts. I have taken several other cards with this that just clears the last monster off the board, and it works. It's one of those things it does feel like a win more card sometimes, in a sense. And I know it's not the greatest card, but it has worked for me, and so I'm deciding to keep it in there just because I thoroughly enjoy being able to still a non-destruction spot removal. It's kind of nice. So the big Xyz monsters, Arise Heart, Big Eye, both of these are self-explanatory, and so is the last one in Zeus. Last 4 spots I have for super poly targets. Like I said, this extra deck is wide open, so if you don't do the super poly target, that just leaves your extra deck wide open for other shenanigans. But I'm playing one Mudragon, one Garura, one Mysterion, and one Draco Knight, a quest. A quest didn't come up last night, but I didn't play against any like Dragon Link players or anything like that. Mysterion is good against majority of branded inboards. But yeah, these were the 4 I chose to go with, and like I understand Dragostapelia, but I have this issue of unless I'm playing branded, I hardly ever see any fusions. So I was kind of like, well, why keep that spot when I could be using it for something else? Which is that's where the third rock comes in hand. So I would drop if I was new for a fact I was going to a regional or bigger event, I would probably consider dropping a third rock for the Dragostapelia or dropping the Lingaribo for the Dragostapelia just because you know that you're going to see more branded. All right, so that finishes main board and extra deck. We'll go into the side deck a little bit for last night's event. I'm not mad. I don't have anything about this that I would change. For the most part, I do have six extra hand traps in here, matchup dependent. 2 droll, 2 shifter, and 2 nib. All these are self-explanatory. If you can play shifter, you might as well play it. The only reason I don't play it in main board is because so many times I end up matched up against somebody else that vanishes or something like that a lot. And shifter's just a dead card. It does nothing in main board. So, but it's an auto win against some other decks like Dragon Link. There's a lot of Dragon Link players that I've played against that as soon as you shifter them, they can't really do a whole lot without losing a lot of their card advantage and stuff like that, or their recursion. So it's kind of nice to have. But I'm sticking to the 2-2-2. It works out. Nibiru won me a game last night. Pretty much by itself. They summoned 5 monsters. They were like, attempt to go to the battle phase. I was like, before you leave main, Nibiru. And they're like, okay, well, you got it because I don't have anything else. So that pretty much, so I plan on keeping this in sideboard because there is a lot of matchups just like D-Shifter that it just doesn't work against. Back row removal, 1 Harpies, 2 Cosmics. I like this ratio. Of course, we all wish we could play more than 1 Feather Duster, but, self-explanatory. I am going with 2 Herald of the Abyss. I didn't play against Pearly last night, but this card has a little bit more than just that. If they only end on 1 monster, it's still a way to spot removal that without destruction or anything, so it's kind of nice. Next up, auto win against some decks, other decks not so much, but 3D barriers. Everyone knows it's pretty much stops the deck's main summoning thing from the extra deck, so it's kind of nice. And it's lingering. Next, the last card in the deck is, of course, Eradicator. So that's it, guys. That is the deck profile. If you have any questions, I'm sure I will do my best to answer them. This build is what's worked for me. Again, if you played this game for a while, everyone knows that the deck doesn't always work for other people the way it would with others. But so far, this deck has done really well for me. I thoroughly enjoy playing this deck. And I plan on keeping this deck around for a little while longer because, honestly, it's one of the more enjoyable decks that I've played in the last little bit. I got tired of trying to play branded. But yeah, this deck it's control. If you know how to interact with certain decks, it helps out a lot knowing the other decks more than just knowing the deck itself, because this deck is very determinate on knowing how to play against other decks. So last night was fun. Undefeated for the first time in a long time. I usually end up with 1 or 2 losses, but I can't complain. So shout out to Card Fox for their locals, and they're in Johnson City, Tennessee. So if you get a chance, check them out. Other than that, thank you guys for watching.